Begin today the Gemara at the bottom of Daf Pei Amud Beis. The Gemara quotes what it said in the Mishnah: "Sris shachalatz liyivimtoi loy pasla chulu." So this is a sris that has to do yibum, but a sris can't do yibum because he can't give birth to a child. So therefore, there's no point of the mitzvah, which is just lahakim shem la'achiv. So in such a case, if there's no mitzvah of yibum, the Mishnah continued there and said, if he was miyavim his yivameh, so then he basically had a relation with a woman which is Eishes Achiv, which is Kares. And if so, he passels her for a Kayin. So the Gemara now is medayik from the Mishnah as follows. Taime de ba'alahu. So now this individual, this brother here, that is a sris and is not allowed to do the mitzvah of Yibum, so because he did the mitzvah of Yibum, pay him at base, at the bottom of payment base. So therefore, he passels her now to the Kayin because of this forbidden relationship. Ha acher loy. But how about if this Yevamos went and had a relation with someone else in the shuk? Right? She's still a Yevamos that needs the mitzvah of Yibum done for her, not by this brother which is a Sris, but by one of the other brothers. She has an Isser of going and having a relation with anyone else outside. So it's mashma from our Mishnah that the issue when the Kayin gets passled is only if she had a relationship with this Sris. But if she has a relation with someone else out in the street, so then no, so then she does not become apostle to the Kayin, even though that's also forbidden for her. Says the Gemara, so this would refute what Rav Amnuna said. Why? Rav Amnuna said the following halacha: Shemeres yavam. If you have a Yevamos that's waiting for her mitzvah of Yibum, shezinsa, and she went and she had a relationship with someone else in the street, psula liyevama. She's going to be puzzled to now go and do the mitzvah of Yibum. What's the point that Rav Amnuna is saying? Just like an Eishes Ish, she's fully married to her husband, and she goes and she has a relationship with someone else, but Ratzin, she can't go back to her husband. It passes her to her husband. So Rav Amnuna says, the Shemeres Yavam, even though she's not yet fully married yet, but we treat her like an Eishes Ish. And if she went and had a relationship with someone else, she can't go back, it passes her to go back to her husband. So if that's what Rav Amnuna says, B'chlal b'negei to every Shemeres Yavam, so for sure the halacha should be so b'negeya to passing her to a Kayin, that if this woman went and had a relation with someone else while she's waiting for Yibum, it should passel her to the Kayin. But from the Mishnah it's mashma that only this sris that had a relation with this woman passels her to the Kayin, but not someone else from the street that she had a relation with. So the Gemara says it's not a diak from the Mishnah. Loi, don't be medayik this way. The truth is, like Rav Amnuna said, if this Shemeres Yavam would go have a relation with someone else, it would also pass it to the Kayin. Nami. So why does it only mention about this ris that was boiler? Because in the Reisha of the Mishnah, the whole halacha of this Mishnah was speaking about the halacha of the sris, whether he's obligated to do Yibum, whether he's not, depends if he's a sris chama, if he's a sris adam. The Mishnah discusses various different cases. So Tananami Sefer B'didei. So in the Sefer of the Mishnah, it also discusses the halacha regarding him, this sris, if he was boil this Yevamos. But it's not, you can't be medayik regarding someone else that she had a relationship with outside of this mitzvah of Yibum. The last case in the Mishnah was v'chein ailanis shecholtzula achen. An ailanis, a woman that can't give birth, and any of the brothers did chalitza first, so the chalitza is meaningless. Then the Mishnah said, but if any of the brothers went and was boil her for the mitzvah of Yibum, and there is no mitzvah of Yibum here because she can't give birth to children, so then this is a forbidden relationship. It's Eishes Ach, and therefore this will passel her to the Kayin. So the Gemara is medayik, time with the ba'alua. The reason she becomes passel to a Kayin, the Mishnah says, is because one of the brothers had a relationship with her. So that makes her asa to the Kayin because this is a forbidden relationship. Haloi balua, but if none of the brothers were miyabim her loy, so then this islandess can go and marry a Kayin. Come on, according to our Mishnah, the like Rabbi Yehuda. It's not like Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Why? Di Rabbi Yehuda, if it would be Rabbi Yehuda, we learned this before. What did Rabbi Yehuda say? Ha'amar, Rabbi Yehuda says, islandess zaynahi. Every islandess, every woman that can't give birth is equivalent to a zayna, to a woman that had a forbidden relationship, just like a woman that had a forbidden relationship before can't go and marry a Kayin, so too every islandess is not allowed to marry a Kayin either. The Gemara brought before a pasik as a source for this. So here this mission that says that every islandess could marry a Kayin, only over here because these brothers, one of them had a relationship with her, that's why you can't. So this mission is not like Rabbi Yehuda. So we're coming back now to the halachas of eating truma. Remember, we have for a while before we were learning about the halachas of eating truma. Sris chame Kayin. So you have a Kayin which is a Sris Chama, he was born a Sris. Shenasa Bas Yisrael, and he married a Bas Yisrael. So Machila B'Truma, so because of this marriage, she can eat Truma. He's a regular Kayin. The fact that he's a Sris Chama does not change the fact that he's a Kayin and he can eat Truma, and his wife, a Bas Yisrael, could also eat Truma. Rav Yosef, Rav Shimon say another halacha, androgynous Kayin, a Kayin, an androgynous, which is an individual that has the signs of a male and a female, Shanas a Bas Yisrael, and he marries a Bas Yisrael, Machila B'Truma. So he also causes that she could eat Truma. So this, in other words, this marriage is a good marriage. We consider him to be like this androgynous. We consider him to be like a Zachar, and therefore his wife, a Bas Yisrael, can eat Truma through this. Rabbi Yudah says, Tumtum. A Tumtum is an individual that had no Eivarim, no Simanim of not a Zachar and not a Nekeva. Shenikra, and now it was uncovered, it was torn open, and we see V'nimtze Zachar, and now he's a Zachar. Lo Yachloitz, but nevertheless, he cannot do Chalitze, Mipnei Shehu Kisris, because a Tumtum is a Sris. Some say that he's a Sris, Chama, he's born a Sris. A Tumtum is a person that even if later you see that he's a Zachar, but he will not be able to give birth to any children. And some say that he's a Sris Adam, that this is it wounds him in a way that he will not be able to have children. So if he can't have children, there's no mitzvah of Yibum. Androgynous, going back to the halacha of an androgynous, nice. So androgynous is allowed to marry a woman, a wife, like we've said before regarding marrying a wife, that a Kain that marries a wife, if he's an androgynous and she eats truma. In other words, we consider this androgynous to be a man, and therefore he could marry a woman. Avaloi nisa, but he can't get married to another man. He can't consider himself to be a female and marry another man, because then we say that it's a man having a relationship with another man. Rabbi Eliezer says, androgynous chayavin olav skila kezachar. That not only is it a suffix, that because maybe he's a man, so therefore he shouldn't marry another man, but an androgynous is considered to be for sure a zachar, and therefore if he has a relationship with another zachar, he's chayiv misa, he's chayiv skila, like any time, like the case of mishkav zachar with the chayiv skila. Dr. Gemara, going back to the first case of the Mishnah, so what did it say? A Kayin, which was a Sris Chama, he was born a Sris, so if he marries a Bas Yisrael, she could eat Trumba now because of this marriage. Dr. Gemara Pshita, that should be obvious. Why would I think that because he's a Sris Chama, she shouldn't be able to eat Trumba? If you remember what we learned before in the Masechta here, a person that became a Sris by a wound, which is called a Sris Adam, so he has the halach of a Petzua Daka, that now he can't have children because of this wound, and he's not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael. But a person that's born a Sris Chama, he's not called a Petzua Daka, and therefore he's allowed to marry whoever he wants. He can marry this Bas Yisrael. So why should she not be allowed to eat Truma? Answers the Gemara, Ma'al the Taima, I would think to say, Mailid Machal. Maybe only a Kayin that could give birth, so he causes that his wife should be able to eat Truma. She'ena Mailid, but if he can't give birth, Eina Maichel, she cannot eat Truma. And the reason for this is, Rashi brings the pasuk, it says, V'yilid Beisai Hem Yechlu. Because the pasuk, when it talks about this halacha, it uses the halacha of Yilid Beisai, I would say maybe only a Kayin that can give birth. Kamash Malam, that's what the Mishnah has to teach me, that even a Kayin that cannot give birth, his wife can eat Truma because she married him. Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Shimon say that an androgynous, that's a Kayin that married a Bas Yisrael, she can eat Truma as well. Omer Reish Lakish, so Reish Lakish says now, the halacha about this androgynous here, ma'achila b'truma ve'em ma'achila b'chazav v'shaik, that she will be allowed to eat Truma through this marriage, but she will not be allowed to eat a chazav v'shaik, which is a certain section of the karbonis of kachim that a woman could eat, if you marry a kain you can eat, but over here she will not be able to eat a chazav v'shaik. Now the reason for this distinction, let's wait a second, the Gemara will explain. Rabbi Yochanan says no difference. Af machila b'chazav v'shaik. She can eat truma. She can eat also the chazav v'shaik, the sections of the animal that belong to the kain and the wife could eat. Usually, she can eat this as well. So the Gemara explains the difference here. Reish Lakish made a distinction between the truma and the chazav v'shaik. What's the reason for this difference? Ma'ishna chazav v'shaik the iraisa. What's the difference when it comes to the chazav v'shaik, which is something which is minatayra? This is minatayra, a certain part of the karbonis that the kayin eats and his wife could eat. So trumenami dairaisa. Truma as well is also something which minatayra the kayin eats, and his wife, Bas Yisrael, that he marries, could eat. Why should we make any distinction between the chazav v'shayik and the truma? Answers the Gemara, Hacha b'may eskinon. What are we speaking about here? B'truma b'zman hazeh. When Reish Lakish said that the wife of an androgynous could eat truma, he's speaking about truma b'zman hazeh. It's truma today, which is only the Rabbanon. So today, because the truma is b'drabanan, an androgynous is really an individual, which is a suffix. It's a suffix if he's a zachar or an akeva. So b'zman hazeh, the truma, which is only b'drabanan, so we're mekel and we allow his wife to eat that truma. Aval b'zman shabis hamikdash kayam. So the Gemara says, so what does that mean? That even according to Reish Lakish, when the Beis Hamikdash is standing, and then the truma is minat Torah, my loy. So then Reish Lakish would agree and say that the wife of this kain androgynous cannot eat the truma, because then the truma is minat Torah, and we don't even know if this androgynous is a zachar or an akeva. So then you're going to say that we're machmer, and they can eat the truma. So, but if that's the halacha according to Reish Lakish, the tani, or rather here some say the gear says the omad. That's why we're not talking about a braisa, we're talking about the statement of Reish Lakish. So why did Reish Lakish say ein machila b'chazav v'shayik, that this androgynous will not allow his wife to eat from a chazav v'shayik? Liflik v'lisni b'dida. Let it make a distinction regarding the halacha of truma itself. And let him say as follows: when could the wife of an androgynous eat truma? B'truma d'Rabbanan. By truma d'Rabbanan, since it's only d'Rabbanan, so even though it's a suffix, if he's a zachar or an akeva, we're lenient and we allow the wife to eat this, the truma. But truma, which is minat Torah, loy, over here, because the androgynous is a suffix, we're not lenient and the wife can't eat the truma. Why doesn't he make this distinction? So the Gemara answers, you're right, let's reinterpret the words of what Reish Lakish said. This is also what he really meant to say, and he's actually saying something even more. He's saying as follows: Keshahu machila, this androgynous, which will allow his wife to eat. So what could she eat? Machila b'truma b'zman hazeh d'Rabbanan. So she can eat truma only today because it's midrabbanan. Ve'ein machila b'zman chazav v'shayik. He can't give her to eat truma in the time when there's a Beis Hamikdash and there's karbanis and there's that section of chazav v'shayik. That's what he meant to say. Now he wasn't saying that you can't eat chazav v'shayik. He's saying in the time when there's a chazav v'shayik, then he can't give her any truma. And what does he mean by any truma? So the Gemara explains va'afilu b'truma d'Rabbanan. In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, even truma d'Rabbanan she won't be able to eat. There are different kinds of trumas. Rashi here brings the truma minat Torah. This is Rashi's shita. Somebody trying to argue with this, but Rashi says minat Torah there's only truma for dagon, tirish, and yitzar, which is grain, wine from a vineyard, and oil. Those are the things that are truma minat Torah from olives. But any other trumas that there are minat Torah from fruits or other things, that's only truma midrabanan. So what the Gemara is saying over here, according to Reish Lakish, when the Beis Hamikdash is standing and there is a concept of truma minat Torah, so then even truma midrabanan, we don't allow the wife of a androgynous to eat, because because maybe if you're allowed to eat truma midrabanan, they could confuse it to she'll come to eat the truma minat Torah. That's what Reish Lakish was saying. Reish Lakish says, Af machila b'chazav v'shayik. Reish Lakish says, Rabbi Yechanan, sorry, okay, Rabbi Yechanan Amar, Af machila b'chazav v'shayik. And Rabbi Yechanan argues and says, not only could she eat any truma, she can even eat from the karbanis, from the chazav v'shayik itself, that's the machlokes here. So the Gemara Amalei Rabbi Yechanan Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yechanan asked Reish Lakish a question on his opinion. Mi savris, do you hold that truma b'zman hazeh d'Rabbanan? That today truma is only midrabanan, and that's why you're being lenient regarding the wife of an androgynous? Amalei in. So Reish Lakish says, yes, I hold that truma today is only midrabanan. Why? She'ani shayne, because I learned in a braisa as follows. Igul bi-igulim. If you have a round cake of figs, pressed figs, and this was pressed figs from truma, and now that pressed figs of truma got mixed in bi'igulim with other round cakes of pressed figs from chulin. What's usually the halacha of truma and chulin that got mixed with one another? So Rashi here brings the halacha that usually if it's 1 against 100, then the truma becomes batal in the chulin. If it's less than 100, it does not become batal. Usually, but other things we say that it has to be batal b'shishim, 1 against 60, or even minat Torah, even just batal b'roiv. But by truma, minat Torah, the halacha is that it has to be 1 in 100. But over here, what's Reish Lakish trying to say with this? Here Rashi brings, and this is what the whole basis of our Gemara is going to be, there's a concept called Dava Choshev. When something has chshivus, it's something that's of significance, it cannot become bottle no matter how much you have against it. So over here the question is, when you have this igul is a Dava Choshev. Why is it a Dava Choshev? One of the ways to determine something, whether it's a Dava Choshev or not, is how it's being sold. Which is going to be the continuation of the Gemara here. If something is sold by number, you give it a number when you sell it. You don't just sell it by you just have a basket of something, but you count each one individually and by number what you sell. That shows that it's something of significance. That's why you count it. This is what's called a davish b'minyan, something that's counted. So igulim, these cakes of figs, of pressed figs, are a dava choshev, and because they're sold usually by number. If so, the question is, how could a brayse tell us that a igul be igulim, that if you have a pressed figs from Trumah that are mixed with other pressed figs of Chulin, that it would be bottle? How could it be bottle if it's a Dava Choshev? Elamai, the answer is because it's Bizman Hazeh. And Bizman Hazeh, the Trumah is only Midrabanan. So since the Trumah is Midrabanan, so over here, Chachamim said, we'll make all that it becomes bottle. So this is Reish Lakish's Raya, that Bizman Hazeh, Trumah is only Midrabanan, because I see that it becomes bottle even though it's a Dava Choshev. Now Rashi happens to point out over here that this igulim that we're speaking about is what? Figs. And figs, even bizman shabbos hamikdash kayam, is only a truma midrabanan, because it's not the dog and tirish v'yitzar. But Rashi says, if truma bizman hazeh would have been minat Torah, then Chachamim would have been geyser that just like for truma minat Torah, it shouldn't be bottle. Even for the figs, which are only midrabanan, it should also not be bottle. Not to confuse midarais and midrabanan. The fact that these figs could be bottle, that shows that bizman hazeh there's bechlal no truma minat Torah at all. This is the raya of Reish Lakish. So now Rabbi Yochanan is going to disagree with this. And the point that Rabbi Yochanan is going to say is that your whole raya is based on the fact that you're wondering how could these cakes of figs become bottle if it's a dava choshev, if it's something of significance. But Rabbi Yochanan will point out that these igulim, they're not something they're not dava choshev. It's not a question how it could be bottle. It's not considered to be a dava choshev. So let's see. Amalei, so Rabbi Yochanan answers to Reish Lakish v'haloi. So first of all, Ani Shaina, I learned in a Braise as follows: Chatiche bechatichais oile. If you have one piece of a carbon chatas and it gets mixed into another piece of a carbon chatas, and this is talking about, let's say, a piece of a carbon chatas that's tahir, that gets mixed into another piece of a carbon chatas that's tamei, or let's say a piece of a carbon chatas that gets mixed into other meat, which is from chulin, oile, that it becomes bottle. Okay, so the Gemara is soon going to quote this Braise. What he's trying to prove from that Braise is that over there you see that pieces of meat are definitely a dava choshev. These are things that are also sold usually by count, a davish b'minyan. And still, there's a Braise that says that it becomes bottle. So, and over there, you're not going to be able to explain to me and say, oh, we're speaking about something which is only midrabanan. It's only kachim midrabanan, and that's why over there, the fact that it's a dava choshev doesn't matter. You can't say that. We're talking about a carbon chatas. This is minat Torah here. I see that a chaticha b'chatichais is going to become bottle. Now, what's the reason? So the question is, if it's something that has chshivus, why does it become bottle? So what Rabbi Yochanan is about to explain is that no, it does not have chshivus. Not the igul has chshivus, and not the chaticha has any chshivus, and therefore it's no wonder that it becomes bottle. So basically, we have here now a machlokes between Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan regarding this igul bi-igulim and the chaticha be-chatichais. Is the igul a dava choshev or not? Reish Lakish held that it's a dava choshev, and therefore the only way to explain why it becomes bottle is because it's midrabanan. And Rabbi Yochanan says no, that it has no chshivus, and therefore it's no wonder that it becomes bottle. Now, what is this machlokes based on? So Rabbi Yochanan explains himself. Mi savris, when you come to determine whether something has chshivus or not, do you think kol shadarkai limnois shaninu? That the way you determine this is anything that the custom is that when you sell it, you count it. That's the way you determine things. He says, no, that's not. Rather, es shadarka limna shaninu. What does es shadarka limna shaninu mean? Not anything that you count. It has to be something that every single person, without exception, always counts it. So in other words, there's two levels to this. There are some things that most people sell by count, but some people don't. And then there are other things that everybody counts it. It's so significant, it's so chashuv that everybody counts it. So Rabbi Yochanan says, in order to define something as a davar chashuv, it has to be es, it has to be something that everybody counts. So therefore the igulim, these cakes of figs or the chatichas of meat, even if most people do count it when they sell it, but not everybody does. So therefore it's not a davar chashuv. And these two levels of counting, whether kol shadar kelimnos or es shadar kelimnos, is two different versions of a Mishnah, which discusses this thing, as the Gemara here brings. Mahi, where is that Mishnah where you see these two versions? It's nan. So we learned in the Mishnah, person had a bundle of tilson, some kind of beans that are klai kerem. Klai kerem is aser, it's klayim, and you're not allowed to eat it, you're not allowed to have any yana of it. So what do you do with this? Yidlaku, so you have to burn it. So now if this klai kerem got mixed with other things, so kulam yidlaku, you have to burn everything. And the reason here is, the point of what the Tanakam is saying is, it's never going to become bottle. This klai kerem is never going to become bottle beroif. Why? Divrei Rab Meir. This is Rab Meir's opinion, and Rab Meir is going to explain in his opinion why it doesn't become bottle in a second. The Chachamim say, Yalo bechadu Masayim. By klayim, the halacha is, at what point does it become bottle? If you have 200 against this klayim, then it becomes bottle. Now, why does Rab Meir say that it does not become bottle? Because Rab Meir said, Kol shadakay limnois. Anytime you have something that the custom is that when you sell it, you count it. Mekadesh. Mekadesh over here means that it makes whatever gets mixed with it forbidden. Usually Mekadesh means it sanctifies, but the term Mekadesh by Klayim is always used that it makes it forbidden. So what is Rab Meir saying? When something is chashuv because it's sold by count, so then even if it gets mixed, it will make everything aser. The Chachamim say, Eina Mekadesh ela shisha dvarim bilvad. There are only 6 items that are chashuv that will not become bottle. Rabbi Kiva says, Shiva. There are 7 items that are very chashuv and will not become bottle. What are those 7 items? Eluhain, they are as follows. Agoize perech, walnuts from perech, Rimayne badon, pomegranates from the place badon, Chaviyeh stumais, closed barrels. We're talking about large barrels of wine or oil. V'chalfei traden, the chalfei the beets, yeah, but the chalfei the stalks of the beets. Kolchei kruv, or the stalks of cabbage, dalas, Yevamos, pumpkins or gourds of from Yavam, from Greece. These vegetables, these things are fruits, are very chashuv, and they will never become bottle. Other than these 7, anything will become bottle. Rabbi Kiva says there's something else that's very chashuv that will never become bottle. Af kikrishal balabayis. And also a loaf that's baked by a private person, that's something that's very chashuv, and if it gets mixed with other things, it will never become bottle. Then the Mishnah there concludes, arla, from these things that we just mentioned, that can be arla. Arla is only regarding fruits, so whether we're talking about the walnuts or the pomegranates or maybe the barrels of wine. So arla, if it gets mixed, it'll all become arla. L'klaya kerem, from the things that we just mentioned, that can be klayim. Klaya kerem is regarding vegetables that were planted in a vineyard, so that would be regarding the beets or the other vegetables mentioned there. So klaya kerem, whatever it gets mixed with, is klayim. Okay, so now this is the Mishnah here, which is the source for the 2 opinions. When you count something, when do I say that makes it a davar chashuv? So the Gemara now explains. Rabbi Yochanan says, Es shedarkei limnei shaninu. In the words of Rabbi Meir, we before read in the Gemara kol. But Rabbi Yochanan says, no, it has to be es shedarkei limnei shaninu. Only something that everybody, without exception, counts it. When you sell it, that's a davar chashuv. Rish Lakish says, kol shedarkei limnei shaninu. That you read in the Mishnah, kol, that anything that people sell by count, even if not everybody sells it by count, is already considered to be a davar chashuv. So that's the basis of the machlokes here between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish regarding the case of Yigulim, whether over there you can prove from there that Truma B'zman Hazeh is Midrabanan. Rish Lakish says that since most people sell it by count, so it's a davar chashuv, so it shouldn't be bottle. So the only way to explain why it is bottle is because it's Truma Midrabanan, so we're lenient. Rabbi Yochanan says it's not a davar chashuv. Even Yigulim, not everybody sells it by count. So if it's not a davar chashuv, it becomes bottle, even if it's Truma Min HaTorah.
Isn't it meat?
Huh?
Davar meat.
By the meat, the Gemara is going to bring now the story benegay to the meat. Here, fuck the Gemara. My chatiche. So we mentioned before that Rabbi Yochanan proved his case from this, that he learned in the Braise regarding the pieces of a carbon chatos that got mixed, that over there they become bottle. So over that's minat Torah. Over there you can't say the reason it becomes bottle because it's midrabanan. So the Tanya we learned in the Braise, it says chaticha shel chatos tmeya, a piece of a chatas which is tamei. If it's tamei, you're supposed to burn it. You can't eat it b'chlal. Shenis arva b'meya chaticha shel chatas tahiris. It got mixed with another 100 pieces of chatas that are toy. So it's 1 against 100. Or v'chein prusa shel lechem apanim. There's a piece of the lechem apanim tmeya. It's tamei. Also, you can't eat it. You have to burn it. Shenis arva b'meya prusa shel lechem apanim tahiris. It got mixed with another 100 pieces of the lechem apanim which is toy. So tala. So it'll become bottle. So this was the source of Rabbi Yochanan. Here's where Rabbi Yochanan says, you see over here that it says that it becomes bottle. Even though we're obviously speaking about chatos and lechem apanim, which are minat Torah. You can't say this is some kind of kachim midrabanan. This is minat Torah, and still it becomes bottle, even though pieces of lechem apanim and pieces of the chatos are things that many people sell this by count. Not everybody. These are examples of things that not everybody sells it by count, but many people do, or most people do. And still it says that it becomes bottle. So what are you going to have to say? What's the reason? Because not everybody sells it by count. So it's not a davar chashuv. This was Rabbi Yochanan's source that you have to say that it becomes bottle.
He says does not become nullified.
Tala, wait, first the Tanakama. The Tanakama says Tala, that it becomes bottle. Not Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda argues, Rabbi Yehuda imeloi Tala. Rabbi Yehuda says it does not become bottle. Right. So Rabbi Yehuda argues in this. Now the Braisa brings another case. Ava chaticha shel chatas tahira shenisarva b'mei chaticha shel chulin tahiris. If you have a piece of a korban chatos, a piece of meat that got mixed not with tomei piece of chatos, but it got mixed with chulin, pieces of meat, or v'chein prusa shel lechem apanim, a piece of a lechem apanim tahira that's pure yakayin kerit, shenisarva b'mei prusa shel chulin tahiris, and it got mixed with other pieces of chulin bread. So over here, divrei akayil lo tala. Everybody agrees that this is not going to become bottle. Even the Tanakama that says that there is bittul here, but in this case, the Tanakama will agree that there's no bittul. Why not? So Rashi explains, when you have a piece of a korban chatos that got mixed with another piece that's tamei, what do you have to do with this? If you're going to say that it's not bottle, you're going to have to burn the entire thing. Kachim that's tamei, nobody could eat, you got to burn it. But if you have a piece of a korban chatos that got mixed with pieces of meat that are chulin, so the kayin could still eat this. No zar, nobody else could eat this, but a kayin could still eat it. So there's no reason to rely on bittul. What you do is just give it all to the kayin, and the kayin could eat it all. Only thing will be is that the value of this chulin will go down. Usually chulin you can sell to anybody. These pieces of meat for chulin you could only give it to the kayin. So the value of it goes down a little bit. But just for that little loss, we don't say that it becomes bottle. So in this case, even the Tanakama will agree that it does not become bottle. So what's the Gemara saying here now? Katani miyas. Now this is a question on Ish Lakish. Either way, what does it say over here? Katani miyas reish. It says in the reish, Tala, that these pieces of meat will become bottle according to the Tanakama. So this is a question on Ish Lakish because, like I mentioned, pieces of meat is an example of something that most people count meat when they sell it, but some people don't. Some people, so therefore, according to Rish Lakish, how could it become a bottle? Rish Lakish says, Kol shedakilim, this as long as most people count it, it's chashuv and it should not become bottle. This is a raya to Rish Lakish, to Rabbi Yochanan, that only something which everybody counts does not become bottle. Answers the Gemara, over here we're not speaking about these pieces of meat that are really intact, but it dissolved. It's not, the pieces of meat dissolved, so even according to the Shlakish, it doesn't have any chshivas. If we're speaking about pieces of meat that dissolved, so then my time with the Rabbi Yehuda. So then why would Rabbi Yehuda here argue and say that it will not become bottle? Seemingly before we thought that the reason would be because Rabbi Yehuda held that it has a certain chshivah, so it doesn't become bottle. But if you're saying we're speaking about pieces of meat that dissolved, so why wouldn't it become bottle? Answers the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda l'taimei. Rabbi Yehuda goes according to his reasoning. What's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion? The Amma min b'minoi loy bottle. Rabbi Yehuda holds b'chlal, anytime you have two minim that get mixed with one another, if they're the same min, if you have over here, you have pieces of meat, it's all meat. It's toy, it's tamei, it's chulin, it's kachim, but min b'mina is never bottle. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda says over here, that's not bottle. Okay, there's a continuation in the middle of the same subject. We'll continue tomorrow. Mitzvah.